Hello, everyone, and welcome to Developing Palates. I'm Aaron Loomis, and with me, as always, is Jiunn Liu. How you doing, Jiunn?
I'm good. It's late night, but
Late night, lots of videos going on,
you
but
know,
we're here for our normal team review recap. And tonight we are talking about the Crowned Heads 4Kicks Black Belt Buckle Sublime. That's a nice long name for you. So this is a famous smoke shop exclusive done by Crown Heads. The Sublime is a Toro 6 inches by 54 ring gauge out of the Tabacalera La Alianza factory in the Dominican Republic. Wrappers Connecticut Broadleaf Maduro, binder and filler from Nicaragua. This cigar is blended by Ernesto Perez Carrillo. Price point on this cigar is $8.95, and the cigar was released in March of 2016. So let's just hop into our pre-light experience. What was your pre-light experience like, June?
so the first thing that stood out to me within the presentation of the cigar was the primary four kicks band, which is that original, like that red band, right? And then the secondary band being that silver and black. It didn't work very well with the primary band, so
Mm-hmm.
it looked kind of funky. But um, in terms of the actual cigar, I thought that it had a very smooth and a little bit of a semi-oily Maduro wrapper.
Mm-hmm.
The veins on the wrapper are well pressed. The seams are super tight. The head finished off with a really fairly deep triple cap. The actual bunching and rolling, I felt like it wasn't very uniform. It was a little lumpy here and there. It
Mm-hmm.
almost kind of reminded me of not a very good buncher and roller that sometimes you see in like some of the custom Cuban cigars that you get. So moving on to the Prelight aromas. So in terms of the wrapper aroma, I got a lot of fresh barnyard, aged cedar, a little bit of flowery floral aspects, and chestnuts. But on the foot, I got white pepper, dry nuts, and some cocoa. Cold draw, I got namely white pepper on the lips, aged cedar, and that kind of stereotypical cardboard that I get pretty often in the pre-light draws.
Right. Yeah, you're getting a little bit of feedback from you, June.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and then
Okay.
yeah.
So the wrapper, very dark brown leather color. There's some lighter colors around the veins. There's like a bunch of thin veins kind of running across the wrapper. Seams were really well blended and smooth. Caps were applied nicely. It has a standard four kicks primary band on it, and then it's got that secondary band that says black belt buckle. Secondary band very different than the primary band. It's kind of cheap. I don't know. It felt cheaper than the regular band. There's no embossing or anything like that. It's kind of like just a flat band, and it's not a big deal. I mean, it looks fine from a distance, but when you're like holding the cigar and feeling it, you can tell the difference between the bands. The aroma from the wrapper was like a slight barnyard, and then the foot was sweet, almost like smelled like prunes to me. And the pre-light draw gave me that same prune sweetness that I was getting from the foot aroma. So that was kind of the experience I had pre-light. So getting into flavor, kind of take us through first third through final third. What was your flavor experience like?
First of all, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Little headphone solved it. uh, so first third, it gave me like a really rich and oily, tongue sticking sort of a profile. So the immediate note that I recognized was uh, this sweet and creamy breadiness, and that was just shown in spades. And there's just so much of it that kind of existed throughout the entire cigar in general. So in conjunction to the bread notes, a little bit of a white pepper spice, some charred wood, and some of that bitterness that could be associated with the charred aspects, and chocolate. On the retrohale, I got bigger dose of the white pepper, but typically when I retrohale, the white pepper is a little too much for me. But in this example, it was just the right amount. And I got dry nuts and a sweet, creamy bread. The finish is just really long and lingering charred wood and bitterness, white pepper and dried nuts. In terms of strength and body, strength was at a medium, and body was a medium plus, which is for me fairly stereotypical of a broadleaf cigar. Moving on to the second third, for the most part, it's a continuation of the first third. Still get a lot of that sweet and creamy bread, the charred wood and the charred bitterness and chocolate. The white pepper is no longer kind of a slight white pepper, and it's thankfully it's more prominent. And then also at that point, you know, within the second third, I think like towards the second half or so of the second third, I had like a sharp minerality, and it combined with the oily and tongue sticking profile really well. So give it a really good body and it just a really full palate layering thing going on. So on the retrohale, same thing, still just the right amount of white pepper combining with the dried nuts and sweet creamy bread. The finish, still long and lingering charred wood and charred bitterness, and white pepper and dried nuts. So a couple of transitions that happened was towards the middle of the second third. I got a few intermittent draws of like a stewed stone fruit or a ripe stone fruit. And I really like this flavor. And in general, I like this flavor a lot in cigars. But the only thing that I wish was that it wasn't so intermittent, and I wish that it was more of a consistent note. And in terms of body and strength, still medium plus body and medium strength. Moving on to the last third of the cigar, it pretty much mimicked the second third. Still that palate layering, sharp and oily minerality, still providing that really sweet and creamy breadiness, charred wood, white pepper and bitterness, intermittent stone fruit still. On the retrohale, still, you know, that perfect amount of white pepper, dried nuts, sweet creamy bread. Finish is still that long and lingering charred wood and charred bitterness, white pepper and dried nuts. And when I say bitterness in this example, it's a good thing, meaning it gives it that extra depth of flavor in the cigar, and it really fills out the profile a little bit better. It fills the profile better. And then body strength, still the same, medium plus body and just medium strength.
Okay. Yeah, for me, the cigar started out with a really oily spiciness and cedar. But after a couple of draws, that oiliness kind of faded away and left the spicy cedar. A half inch in, the spice settled down some more, and the cedar kind of took center stage. And the retrohale was very similar profile to the mouth flavor. About an inch in, the spice really mellowed out even more, but the slight oiliness kind of came back to the profile, and it was coating my tongue. Cedar was still the primary flavor, but the retrohale now has become smoother. And as it passed the 1 inch mark, the cedar dropped back, and the profile became really earthy. And the retrohale kind of followed that transition to the earthiness. An inch and a half in, earthiness mellowed a little bit, and a light coffee came in. And the retrohale became really nice and smooth. It was a really nice experience there. Getting into second third, it kind of was a continuation of how the first third was finishing. Still some earthiness and a little bit of coffee with a nice creamy retrohale. Half inch in, coffee became a little bit brighter, almost like a greener coffee bean, if you were to experience that. But that kind of just stayed there for a little bit, and then the coffee kind of moved back to the nice roasted flavor I was getting previously. An inch in, the profile didn't really change all that much. It was still earthy with a little bit of the coffee. And then an inch and a half in, some oak came into play with the earthiness in the coffee. And the retrohale at that point was then primarily oak with a little bit of earthiness in the background. And then getting into the final third, same profile, but a little bit of mintiness came in. There was still a little bit of coffee in the background, but not much. Then a 1/4 inch in, the mintiness went away, and then it was primarily oak with a little bit of earthiness on the finish. And then a half inch in, the mintiness came back. And then at an inch, the mintiness went away. So it was very fluctuating in and out with the mintiness. A little bit of pepper came into the mix near the end of the cigar. And that just kind of how the cigar finished out. And for me, strength profile was medium the entire way, first third to final third, not really any ups or downs. It was really consistent over the entire time. So getting into performance with burn and draw, what was your experience like?
I thought the burn was amazing. It's I said in my review, on my written review, that it's worth many Instagram likes. um, but I mean, it doesn't surprise me that it was such a good burn in terms of ash hold and I had like averaging of 2-inch ash marks, and the burn rate was I got 128 minutes out of smoking, which is great. The burn was pretty sharp. It's almost razor sharp, but given that it's a hardier broadleaf wrapper, it should burn and hold pretty tight for such a hardy wrapper.
Right.
So in terms of the draw that I had was kind of tight. I mean, it didn't really bother me that much, but I was still able to get all the full flavors out of it. And even cutting it pretty close to the end of that cap, it still had the same tighter draw.
Right. Yeah, the burn for me was really good as well. It was a little bit wavy at times, but it always kept up with itself. I never had to, do any touch ups or anything like that. And the ash was like 1 inch plus in size. I had one drop off on me, so I was just kind of paying a little bit of attention to it to kind of tap it off when I thought I was going to be getting close to that. But it was doing really well. In terms of draw, it was a little tighter than I prefer, but not much. It was still very good. And this cigar produced a ton of smoke on each draw. It was just not at rest, but when you took a draw, you were getting a lot of smoke, and then you'd get a bunch of smoke off of the foot, and then it would settle down after a couple of seconds. So that was nice. So overall, what do you think your experience was with the cigar?
Overall, I thought that it's a cigar that's fairly simple and straightforward. Meaning, you're not going to get a ton of transitions and complexities out of this thing. It's just a solid Connecticut broadleaf offering. It kind of has everything that most people look for in a tasty cigar. You get sweetness, spice, wood, and great construction. It's certainly not my favorite of the broadleaf and Connecticut broadleaf out there. I think that Tatuaje 2050 TAA still reigns supreme in terms of, being the best out of what we've reviewed and what I've smoked in general.
Right.
But I mean, you're looking at $9 for Sublime size, and this is a great price. And really, if you were to catch some of those famous coupons that often circulates around, I'm sure you could probably get it cheaper than that.
Yeah.
So it's worth grabbing a few for sure, but
Right.
It's not going to be anything that's going to be mind blowing. It's just a solid good cigar to kick back and smoke.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were like really right on par with this cigar in regards to both of our experiences. I mean, same thing as you said. It's not a complex cigar in regards to transitions, but it's okay because the flavors are good. Like it doesn't have to change up all the time if it's an enjoyable flavor profile. So that was kind of my experience. I mean, the first third was my favorite. It kind of tapered off after that, but it was still good. It wasn't that the cigar went to any kind of bad point. I would say it's pretty approachable to any smoker. It does have some darker flavors, at least for me, with the earthiness. So if that's not really in your profile, you might want to stay away from it just because it's not what you want. But I think a lot of people would be able to smoke it, and it's not going to, bash them over the head with, coating their palate or anything for something that they don't want.
Right.
And I actually think that this would be a really good cigar with coffee. I mean, I got some coffee notes as I smoked it. I would say like a late morning or like an early afternoon cigar with coffee. I think this might be a super pairing with those. But like you said, price point on this is really good. Getting it from Famous, like you said, there's options of getting reduced prices. So definitely worth picking up some to try out. And if you like it, you can go back and buy more if you want to go deeper on them. So one thing I wanted to bring up, and I think we smoked this together a few months back. And I want to say when I smoked it originally, I didn't like it as much as I liked it now.
The problem with us hanging out and smoking these cigars is we're always drinking alcohol with it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and we both know that, but it's more about hanging out and, just kicking back and having some good booze and good cigars.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I could I could attest to the consistency of this cigar because we I don't how many samples of this did we get total? Like 5 or 6 of
Yep.
them.
5.
But anyways, so aside from that sample that we smoked together like a month ago while drinking booze, which doesn't really count, I smoked both samples of this back to back in 2 different days on a fresh palate, and I referred back to my notes on my review sample on the second one that I smoked, and it was spot on. And everything was spot on in terms of flavor, in terms of body, in terms of strength, in terms of construction. So, yes, it is a handmade product, but given basically smoking within the both of us 5 samples, and not having complaints of construction and similar flavors in terms of the non-booze pairing, just like review pairing. I mean review of the ones. I think it's great. Like it's odd because I mean I basically scored it. Like, what was my total score?
6.73.
6%. That's pretty high for something in which I feel like it's just not much complexity in transitions. Like, whereas some cigars, first and second third, maybe just absolutely lights out fantastic, and it really drops off at the last third. Whereas this cigar is kind of like a steady Eddie good cigar. So with this score, I feel like it's warranted for this score, but for very different smoking experience.
Right.
It's not going to wow you, but it's consistent and it's just tasty and it's cheap.
Yep.
So
yeah, my score was 7, so we were really close on scores. I mean, it was just one slight variation in kind of how we rated different categories, but otherwise we were pretty much identical in scoring it. And I think it fits perfect, like you just said. The cigar's not going to blow you away, but if you want something that you can go back to, multiple times and get that good experience, it's a reliable cigar that you can go to and get those flavors. So I think there's value in that, that what you're going to get when you go back to it. So
for sure.
Yeah, I think the score is warranted. Definitely a good score, and I say definitely go out and pick up some, see if they fit your profile.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Okay. Well, that wraps it up for this review recap. If you're just catching this video on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to us, but also check out the website for the full written review, developingpalates.com. Be sure to follow us on all the social media channels. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Google+, and Twitter. And thank you for joining us, and we will catch you on the next one.